I made the dumbest, most detrimental decision of my life last year. I'm a female and at the time was 16 with very low self-esteem. I admit it was a rough year for me last year and I craved attention badly. I didn't have a legitimate father figure growing up and was in a constant power struggle with my mother. This initiated me lashing out and, well, doing incredibly stupid shit. The worst of my decisions came during Christmas break. I had just ended my time as a waitress at a local diner and was confined to my room for several days after being grounded. Well, technically I was grounded from leaving my house, but staying in my room was my choice. I would entertain myself with social media, Twitter mainly, but I would also use dating sites to ease the boredom. Tinder was definitely the most fun. I admit I lied about my age so that I could use the app, but I clarified that I was only 16 in the bio section. I was extremely picky, swiping right on only about 1 out of every 20 guys. I didn't give the ones I chose much thought. Some of them messaged me and some didn't. I had a lot of short-lived, senseless conversations that led to nothing. That was until I met this man named Zach. He was 25, or so he said, and was actually very attractive. He messaged me a cheesy pickup line and we flirted back and forth for a while. Eventually, he asked for my number and of course I didn't hesitate. I gave it to him and we texted that entire night. The conversation was casual. He had trouble spelling out words and his grammar was horrendous, but honestly, I found it kinda cute. It was around 3 a.m. when I decided to pass out, leaving him and everyone else I was communicating with hanging. Being that it was super late, I figured they would understand and know that I had fallen asleep. This was not the case. When I woke up that morning, around 11 a.m., I had 12 missed calls, 3 or 4 voicemails, and 10 or so text messages, all from Zach. He seemed like a decent, mild-mannered man when texting, but this was not the case when I read his messages and listened to his voicemails. I had never in my life heard or read such disgusting, threatening language, and it came out of nowhere. He said a lot of things, but I'll share the worst of it with you. The last message he sent me read as follows.
Okay, cunt, since you want to ignore me like a bitch, then I'll treat you like one. When I see you, I'll show you how much I hate being ignored. Have you ever had a broken jaw? It hurts, and I can't wait to shove myself in your bloody mouth.
Yeah, vile shit, man. Excuse the spelling and grammar of the screenshot. Like I said, he was really bad at those things. I immediately blocked him and didn't even bother texting back. I deleted the messages and voicemails and just tried to forget the whole thing. I didn't tell anyone, especially not my mother. I would have for sure had my phone taken away. 2 days passed and nothing had changed. I was still locked away in the house, being a bed bum in my room. It was late, everyone was asleep, and I was once again bored out of my mind. I was thinking about the whole Zach ordeal when suddenly I had an oh shit moment. I had blocked him from everything besides the very place I met him, Tinder. I had notifications for that app turned off, so I had completely forgotten about it. I logged back on, and sure enough, it was riddled with messages from Zach. I wasn't even going to open them, but the first several words from the thread caught my eye. He was talking about how he knew where I lived and that he was standing outside my house. He even mentioned the house being 2 stories. This could have been a good guess. I mean, a lot of houses are 2 stories, but what shook me at my core and sunk my stomach was his location. When I first matched him, he was 30 or so miles away. But now it said he was less than a mile away. I lost my shit and quickly deleted him and my Tinder account immediately. I regret this now because I didn't think to screenshot it for evidence or whatever. I was still too stupid and scared to tell anyone. I spent that entire night peeking out of my window and even let one of our outside blue healers sleep in my room. I was scared to the point of nausea. I stayed awake until dawn, so I slept until around 3 p.m. When I went downstairs, my mother had spine-chilling news for me. She told me that a man came to the door asking for me and said that he knew me from church. I didn't even attend church at the time. My mother, thank God, very smartly told him that he had the wrong house, and then contacted the police and gave a description. She didn't bother waking me because she thought, and still thinks, that the man was just a random creeper, and that I had no knowledge of him. She said that he asked for her daughter, rather than saying my name. If it was indeed Zach, I had no idea and still have no idea how he found me. It was the longest month of my life before I moved to live with my older sister. The only vague possible sign of Zach that I saw was an old junky green car that often drove down our street. It most likely wasn't him, but my nerves told me otherwise. This whole situation still gives me nightmare fuel, and I haven't used Tinder since. To all you girls out there, and even guys, please be careful when using social media apps and speaking with strangers. You never truly know who you're talking to.
A little backstory for me. I'm a really petite 16-year-old girl. I'm 5 feet tall and 93 pounds, and I haven't grown since 7th grade. I take MMA, kickboxing, and self-defense classes in order to keep myself safe since I'm so small. I had just broken up with my boyfriend, and I decided to get on Tinder. Within an hour, I had a guy, we'll call him Thomas, message me. His bio said he lived about 20 minutes from me and he was 18 years old. We talked for a day or two on there and we had a lot in common. He could make me laugh, and that was super important to me. He asked if I'd like to meet him, and I said sure. Since I've had a bad past with guys, I asked if we could go somewhere public, and I'd meet him there instead of him picking me up. We met at the movies and had a great time. He drove me home and everything was great. About a week later, he asked if he could pick me up from school to get ice cream and walk around this beautiful lake near my house. I said okay, and I was really excited. He picked me up, we got ice cream, and we walked about halfway around the lake when we decided to sit on a bench. It was silent. And then he started talking about how he'd get away with killing someone. My red flag started going off. I laughed it off and said I've watched shows like that, hoping he was joking. He smiled, stood up, and started walking towards the dog poop bag dispenser. I felt uneasy, so I stood up as well. He put the bag over his hand and started walking towards me. He put the bag near my face, and I thought he was just trying to gross me out. As I swatted the bag away and giggled, he grabbed my forearm, pulled me and put me in a headlock and put the bag over my mouth. I thought he was sick and just messing around, but after about 5 seconds, I started screaming and squirming. He picked me up so I couldn't kick him in the balls from my angle. After about 30 seconds, I felt as if I was going to pass out, and I got really scared. Luckily, I knew self-defense, and I hit him in the jaw, and he released my arm. I then hit him in the balls. He fell to the ground and laughed. He said,
"I didn't think you'd be able to defend yourself."
At this time, I knew I wouldn't be able to outrun him. I remembered I had a taser in my purse, which was in his car. I pretended to laugh and told him that I needed my inhaler from the car. He walked me over there really close to me with his hand around the back of my neck, like how moms do when they're angry with you in public. It was silent until he muttered,
"I could have killed you back there."
I got to the car, grabbed my taser out of my bag, and took a hit from my inhaler. I told him my mom wanted me home by 5, which was a lie, and we had to leave. I was texting my mother an SOS message, and I looked up to see him holding a pocket knife. I was scared now, really scared. He opened it and put it between my rib cage. I couldn't say anything. I just looked at him. He said,
"Could have killed you twice today."
He put the pocket knife away. I had a taser and I knew I could defend myself, so I let him drive me the rest of the way home. The entire drive, he talked about how easy it would be for him to kill someone and how he would feel very little remorse. He said he'd always imagined how it would be to put a knife through someone's chest or hold them underwater until the bubbles stopped. He texted me 5 minutes after I got home saying, I don't think we should see each other anymore. And that was that. I went to the police station the next day. They looked him up and said, how old did he say he was? I said 18. Thomas turned out to be 23 with a record of beating up his ex-girlfriend, and he was also known to make younger girls uncomfortable at his workplace. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't know how to defend myself. Luckily, I'm okay and haven't heard from him since.
I have never felt proud about ever having signed up for one of those stupid dating sites, but when you're an 18-year-old college freshman who struggles with social engagements and is on the autistic spectrum, I guess you could say I was a bit desperate to have even a hint of what many around me had in terms of what we consider to be love. My history in terms of relationships was scarce, having only one real relationship for a month during my junior year of high school with a girl I never even expected to date. Although it didn't last too long because she decided to move on to someone who moved a bit faster. I shrugged it off in no time, though my friends didn't follow suit for a while, hitting me with jokes about the situation on a daily basis in class. After that whole relationship, if you can even call it that, I had experimented with a number of over-the-web relationships, but those didn't prove to be very successful either. Sometime during the Christmas break of my freshman year in college, I joined a couple of dating sites, still not being able to recollect why I came to the decision to even do so. I can't say I had much luck, with most of the conversations going absolutely nowhere 99% of the time, though I did end up making a friend or two throughout the time spent on the sites. I did end up going on one date with a woman that luckily did end up being who she said she was and didn't end up stabbing the life out of me when we met up near my house. But a couple months later is where messages over those sites would turn into a horror story. Just a couple months earlier, I had received a reply from a young lady complimenting me on my physical appearance, but I didn't hear from her again for over a month. When I did hear from her, we talked for a bit via the app's messenger until I asked to move it over to SMS. Nothing was out of the ordinary, just casual chat throughout the same day that I had originally given my number to this person. But later that night, things took a really weird twist when this young lady started being sexual with me. And being the hormone-filled young adult I was, I played along. One thing led to another, and she sent a nude photo to me. And note that I had in no way asked for it. That, of course, made it worse, the thoughts in my mind blanking out all glimpses of morality and common sense. She wanted to see me, too, and I held no objections, haphazardly sending my own photo to her. Nothing pulled up a red flag for the rest of that night, but the next day I noticed she wasn't really texting me after the morning hours. I was sitting at my desk in my dorm watching YouTube when I receive a call, and the caller ID is in her contact. I've never had her call me before, so I was kind of surprised, but picked up the phone and greeted the person on the line. "Hello?" I said, still a very calm and casual tone to my voice since nothing was wrong yet. But then, on the other side of the phone was not the sound of a young lady.
What are pictures of you doing on my 15-year-old daughter's phone?
I hang up instantly, not even taking the time to respond to the man's voice on the other end. I panicked. I knew hanging up was the wrong move, but I didn't know how I could have responded. Did this girl lie about her age? Was I a victim of some sort of trick? Then a text comes through from her contact that read something along the lines of,
"You better call me back or you'll be in a prison cell within an hour."
At this point, my heart has nearly imploded within my chest, but I dare not challenge this man, and I call him just as he demanded. I wish I could still remember the exact conversation that went on, but everything went by so fast that the smaller details have since faded from my memory. All I can remember is trying to explain to this supposed father that I didn't know that the girl was underage, and that her profile said she was 20 years old. But all I could get in response is how I'm a sicko, a monster, a pedophile, and how he was going to put me behind bars. And for me, being a very skinny and fragile young man, I was terrified of the thought of being put behind those thick stone walls for years. My life being over, all my hard work and education being useless because no one will want to hire a sex offender, especially a pedophile. He then presented me with a proposal. If I would send this man $350 for the deactivation of the girl's phone, then he would just forget everything and let me go on free. In my savings account was maybe about $400 at the time. That had only been deposited days prior, but at the time I was prepared to give it to the stranger if it meant I didn't need to be afraid of being put in handcuffs for something I was the victim of. Problem was, I had no car. No way to even get to a MoneyGram. I barely even knew what that was, but the man said that that was how I was going to send the money. I literally begged my roommate to help me, to drive me, but he couldn't give two shits and decided his studies were more important than what could have been possibly my livelihood. But that's besides the point. I told the man that there was nothing I could do, that I had no ride, but he didn't seem to care and said I had until 7 p.m. to get the transaction done. Even worse was he basically had me hostage, because he said I had to stay on the phone with him the entire time, and was urging me to not tell anyone about what was going on, acting as if he gave a shit about what my family or what people around me might think of me when they heard what I did. Or was being accused of doing anyways. I told him I had to contact my family to help, and he gave me permission to contact them, but to quickly call him back afterwards. I can't imagine how my mom and stepdad felt when they received a call from me. In complete and utter panic, almost crying for the first time in so long. I was so afraid. Not only to be taken off to those stone walls, but to have my friends and family and community all shun me for the entirety of my life. Over one little mistake I made, even though I had no idea I was even doing something wrong because, in my eyes, I was the victim. I was manipulated by this person. My stepdad quickly called up the man and threatened him, and the man only responded by trying to sound tough and hanging up. My stepdad spammed that phone with probably over 1,000 messages for about a day. The only other message I got from that number was a message saying, "I hope you like prison." My mom and stepdad said I don't have to worry, that there was a 99% chance that this was all a scam, an attempt to extort me because I'm young and an easy target for this kind of thing. That didn't mean that for the next couple of weeks I wasn't paranoid that a policeman would come knock at my dorm door with a pair of handcuffs with my name on them. And even if it was a scam, that I couldn't help but feel stupid, that I was naive enough to actually fall for it. To be a short drive away from depleting my whole savings account to pay off this man. To this day, I still wonder if it was nothing but a ploy. Because if it wasn't, then technically I am guilty. Even if I thought this girl was of age, because in court there would be no "I thought" or "I didn't know." I tell this story hoping that people will take my stupid actions as an example of what not to do. To hopefully encourage others to take caution on the internet. Especially these dating sites, because no one is more vulnerable than a lonely and single person. Don't ever give personal information if you're not sure that they're real. And definitely do not ever send explicit photos. Tell your hormones no, because one quick release is not worth ending up embarrassed and feeling violated. Or worse. Speaking of how you could be safe on the internet, this video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. And even if you don't care about the sponsor, please listen real quick as this information is valuable to you regardless. You ever been at a hotel drowning in money, covered in bitches saying how great you are for having 1 million subscribers despite having no other achievements in your life? One of them kind of looks like your ex, so now it's kind of bittersweet because you can't stop thinking about her even though it's been years. Well, me neither. But imagine you were at a hotel and you're hungry. You use the public Wi-Fi and order some Chinese food with your card online or something. Well, you fucked up, silly goose, because just like that, you're a risk for your identity, financial information, and really any information you input whilst on the Wi-Fi being stolen. That's just one small example. I personally hate that feeling with the force of over 1,000 smiling men, so that's why I use ExpressVPN, which encrypts all of my information because that's the last thing I'd want to worry about on a vacation or something, if I ever went outside. And honestly, for only $7, the peace of mind is worth it. Not only that, but it has many other uses as well, i.e. accessing information that could be restricted in your country, like things on Netflix that you otherwise wouldn't be able to watch, as well as hiding your IP to a completely different country or place if you're ever in a situation where you feel you need it to be. Like, I don't know, calling some mysterious man you barely know online on Skype who just so happens to be packet sniffing your IP address to find out where you live. Or maybe you suddenly want to show you're 5,000 miles away instead of less than a mile away from a Tinder date who's stalking you, whose name is maybe, I don't know, Zach. Fuck you, Zach. Or even when you're just browsing websites that you maybe don't want to have your IP. It works on every device, takes about 5 seconds to connect anywhere, is less than $7 per month if you sign up through my link in the description, and you get 3 months free with that package. If you get it and you're like, oh man, I don't like this, for whatever reason, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee as well as 24/7 support. By getting ExpressVPN, you're protecting yourself from packet sniffing attacks and once again ensuring your information will be safe and encrypted on public Wi-Fi at places like hotels, coffee shops, airports, and anywhere really. Peace of mind, basically. If you don't believe any of the dangers I said, Google it, you'll find these are very real things. By using my link, expressvpn.com/corpsehusband, to get it, you're directly helping me, i.e. my medical bills and general living, and the channel, animation costs to bring you guys animated videos that I've been wanting to do for a while, as well as getting an amazing product that you can use at the same time. Anyways, thanks for watching. Big thanks to Eden for narrating the second story, whose channel is also in the description. And for anyone wondering about my medical stuff, some of you have been suggesting I have MS, and my doctor thinks it's a possibility as well, so within the next week I'm getting my brain MRI to check for it. So thank you for mentioning that, and I was recently diagnosed with sleep apnea as well. Thank you for watching, stay safe, and have an awesome day. Holy shit.